Hi, I'm going to show you very quickly how I do a guided reading activity with the entire class to set up the Amazing Race Canada. And this is using the John Montgomery biography, which is located in the slideshow. So the first question I ask the students is, have they ever received some text, the pages of text, where they get overwhelmed by all the words and it makes them not want to read it because they feel like it's way too much to read? And I usually get a very positive response from a number of students. And then I suggest perhaps we not read this article, but we go through and highlight some of the big features that we see. And based on what we see, we try and get the gist or the general idea of what we're going to read. And then if we're intrigued, we can read it after. So I begin with the very first line, and I see that bolded here are the words John Montgomery biography. And I know John Montgomery is a person. We already talked about that. And if I didn't know the word biography, I could open up another tab and search the word biography. But I do know that a biography is the story of someone's life. Bio is life, graphy is story, the story of a life. So this is going to be about John Montgomery's life. So early life reinforces the fact that we're reading about his life. And then I see the word skeleton racer made in bold. Now, obviously, I'd be going much slower with the students to give them a chance to see these things. And a skeleton, I could talk about the fact that I'm not sure what a skeleton is, but I do see this picture right here, and this tells me a lot of information. I see Vancouver in the background, and I see this sled, this very thin sled, and he's dressed up in an athletic outfit. So obviously, this is the racing down the hill in an Olympic event. And I know it's the Olympics because I know that the 2010 Olympics rather, were in Vancouver. And I happen to glance on the side here, and that gets reinforced. So I know this is about him at the Olympics, and that this is the event that he was in. Again, a lot of words. I'm going to skip over the words until I get to this bold mixed bobsleigh skeleton team. So I do know what a bobsleigh is. I'm not sure what the mixed part means. What does that mean, that he raced with men and women, or does that mean that he raced on both the bobsled and the skeleton? I don't think it's important. Just that I know that he's an athlete, that he races in these winter events involving sliding down a hill very quickly. And then, of course, the idea I had before gets reinforced again by this next heading, that there's the 2010 Winter Olympics, and I see lots of words. And I see Olympic gold. So I know I'm gonna say I know that he won the Olympic gold, and I'm guessing that because there's this picture here, and he is either celebrating or he's about to punch someone in the face, superhero style. But I'm gonna assume celebrated, and there I see the word celebrated, and I see this word exuberantly. Now here's a great opportunity to stop and talk with the students about figuring out a word based on the context. So there's describing the way he celebrated as being exuberant, or he celebrated exuberantly. How many people know that word? And a few kids might raise their hands. But I say, that's a tricky word. But what might we assume it means based on the picture and the idea that it's the Olympic gold? So they will hit on the idea that he celebrated excitedly. And I said, exactly. So we can determine some words just by that context. So obviously, we're not going to say he celebrated miserably. This picture doesn't suggest someone who's celebrating miserably. So I continue to go down. There's another opportunity to do that later on, where he talks about where he said he was going to remain stoic. So this is one you might highlight as well to determine the word stoic. And in this situation, when we read through it a little more closely, you'll find out that his plan was to not be, overly excited in front of the people that he just beat. And that's a great opportunity to talk about sportsmanship. And they'll also realize that stoically meant, solemnly or quietly or calmly, and that he wasn't able to do it. And then he apologized after. So we can say that, even though he made a mistake, he was a really good sport about it. So there's a great opportunity to talk about sportsmanship there and some of the things that we're going to highlight in our global competencies and our learning skills. So continuing with the lesson, celebration is the next thing. So you can see how I go through this and talk about things I noticed in the picture, talk about the fact that I see the CTV logo. He's in a Canadian hat and a Canadian shirt. And there's nothing more stereotypical Canadian than a Canadian not celebrating with champagne, but celebrating with beer, wearing a toque. That's something we can touch on. As we go down, we get to the life after the Olympics. We can highlight this. And then we arrive on the fact that he's going to be the host of the Amazing Race Canada. So there's a little bit at the end about his personal life. You can talk about bullet points and how they break up things. And I love when I get to this last one, when I say Montgomery is also an alumnus of the Canadian Automotive, and then I just go, I'm bored. This is not interesting. I don't think this is important to our entire article. So that you can do that sometimes. When you're reading something, if you hit a sentence that's really overwhelming, you can just go, I don't think it's important. I'm going to jump away from that sentence. We then roll back up to the top and say, all right, tell me a little bit about John Montgomery's life. And then as a class, they all quickly offer ideas. A lot of times I'll let them talk at their tables first, and then maybe have a spokesperson from the table tell me what they think John Montgomery's life is all about. And then I say, have we read the article? And the truth is we haven't. But do we know a little bit about John Montgomery? Well, let me read the article to you. Then I'll simply do it as a read aloud, and we'll touch on all the things. They'll tell me things they might want to highlight. And then I do a quick summary, a summary of what we've discovered. And I tell them that that's the next activity they're going to be doing with the participants from the race. So that's the guided reading section. Hope that's helpful.